Welcome to GreenBiz Studio. I'm Dylan Siegler, SVP of Sustainability at GreenBiz Group, and I am fortunate to be here with Dr. Imari Walker-Franklin. She's a research scientist at RTI International. Welcome, Imari.
Thanks, Dylan, for having me.
First of all, tell us about RTI and your role there.
Of course. RTI International is an independent nonprofit research institute that's dedicated to improving the human condition. Our vision is to address the world's most critical problems with science-based solutions in pursuit of a better future. And what I do at RTI is I'm a research scientist that really looks at plastic pollution and its impact on environmental and human health.
Great. And we're here today to talk about the connections between the plastics life cycle and plastics broadly and environmental justice. And for some of us in the audience who are immersed in the plastics world, the connection between these two things may be intuitive. But I'm curious for the uninitiated, why are plastics an environmental justice issue?
Well, first we have to worry about what are the human health issues associated with plastics. When we think about plastics, I think a topic that people think about is microplastics that's been popping up in the news, which we're now finding in our food, our drinking water, our air, and now into different parts of our body, like our blood and even the plaque lining our arteries. So we're worried about these plastics because they've now been associated with serious health issues, like increased risk for heart attack, stroke, cancer, and fertility issues, let alone that there are thousands of these chemicals in plastics, and only 26% of them have been found to be potentially, 26% have been found to be potentially unsafe for humans and for the environment. And many of those have not really been evaluated for risk. So when we think about plastics, we now have to think about, for environmental justice, the fact that there is unequal exposure to plastics as a whole. We may all be exposed to it on a daily basis, but there is an unequal burden for plastic pollution. And so low-income communities and communities of color often have fewer options to reducing their exposure and could be faced with disproportionate health impacts during all phases of the plastic life cycle.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Can you delve a little deeper into the environmental justice aspects through all phases of the plastics life cycle?
Yeah. So when we think about, the different life cycle for plastics, we have to start with production, which includes plastic extraction and manufacturing, which can release a variety of greenhouse gases and other chemical byproducts to surrounding communities. One such example is actually with Cancer Alley, where there's large quantities of petrochemical facilities that neighbor these communities that have some of the highest incidences of cancer and asthma in the country. And then when we go to the use stage, we have to think about the fact that we've been rapidly consuming with increasing urbanization plastics. And with increased urbanization, we also have increased food deserts in marginalized communities where there's, not a lot of, nutritious and affordable foods that aren't, often wrapped in plastic packaging. So they usually get most of their goods from discount stores, gas stations, and mini marts that have higher plastic volumes to product, leading to excessive plastic burden. And then finally, when we think about waste management, many of these waste management facilities, like incinerators, landfills, and recycling facilities, are also placed adjacent to marginalized and historically disadvantaged communities whose protests have often gone unheard. And these facilities have the potential to release things like microplastics and chemicals associated with plastic waste into the air, into the water, and the urban environment near these communities.
It's an unfortunately common story that we hear that those who have fewer resources, potentially, overlapping with BIPOC communities, end up always bearing the brunt of these impacts. And so now that we're more aware of the connections between environmental justice and plastics, what can be done? What is RTI doing in this space?
Yeah. So when we think about environmental justice, we first have to think that most of it is actually community led, like the actual changes that have been made over the years. And so really the most important way that brands or industry or just anyone can work to address these issues is to work with communities and community leaders to help understand their perspectives and their needs, and then work to provide them localized support. And so, some hands on examples include things like thinking about ways to utilize sachet packaging in low product volumes and design product delivery in a way that's more reusable and refillable. And then keep the circular economy in mind at the end of the day. Continue to put plastic into use instead of into waste, essentially.
It's such an important topic. Thank you so much for helping us get up to speed on it. Looking around the corner, what can you say is coming in the world of plastics and environmental justice?
I would say that as far as the opportunities for the future and even for others to kind of look for expertise in this world for plastic pollution and environmental justice, I think RTI is definitely leading the field and has a diverse set of expertise that can help address all components of the plastic life cycle, including advisors that work with industry and government and communities to help address these issues. We have engineers that design nanoplastics and microplastic reference materials that even toxicologists and chemists can use to study for impacts to human health. We have advisors that inform industry on ways to create more sustainable products that keeps the circular economy in mind. And, we work with multiple government industries to help understand waste management and life cycle assessments for plastic pollution. So, we're hoping to be the forefront to help continue to address this work.
We've been with Dr. Imari Walker-Franklin of RTI. Thanks so much for joining us for GreenBiz Studio.
Thank you.